AWL Sports, where we review all the best sports clips from around the country. Now, you're probably wondering, why should I watch over here instead of over there? Because over there, they don't care about what you have to say. They say this all the time. They talk down to us. They think we're just a bunch of clowns on YouTube, Twitter. But I think it's the opposite. I think we know exactly what we're talking about. So I read every single comment. So if you think what I'm saying is the most ridiculous thing you've ever heard, let me know in the comments below. If you think what I'm saying is the most amazing thing, then definitely please let me know. Either way, let's get into some discussions, let's get into some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and it's growing into something truly, truly special. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of, and I think we're well on our way to doing it. So without further ado, let's get to it. We're watching a clip of First Things First, talking about the 49ers game versus the Detroit Lions, but specifically, and I posted a bunch of other clips breaking down the 49ers play, the Lions play, and Brock Purdy's play, but this is now specifically about Dan Campbell. And I have really strong feelings about this because I think Dan Campbell made absolute mistakes here. I don't think there's any question about it. I think a lot of people try to say, well, this is who he is. This is the identity of the team. This is, what got them there. And I just say no to all of that, honestly. There's a difference between being aggressive and being smart. And I said this in a previous video where retreating or being conservative isn't meaning you're being weak or like you're not being aggressive. In war, plenty of times you retreat, and it's not because you're hurt. It's not always because, you're losing or because something's bad or wrong or this. It's because it's the smart decision to make. And actually, the smartest comment that someone said to me last night was that he probably should have gone for it at the end of the first half and then not gone for it in the other opportunities in the second half. And I think that's a fair idea, But in that regard, right, hindsight is always 20/20. But you had a chance to go up 3 scores, which is significantly different than just 2 scores. I mean, it just is. Obviously, 3 is bigger than 2, and that's what happens. And so you not only do you not convert, but then you also now give momentum and a big like, all right, we got this to the 49ers, and you give them great field position. Those things matter. And in this game, it was just silly and dumb to do. And to me, that was more of, I don't want to say ego, but it was more of like a childish thing, kind of similar to what we saw with the 2-point conversion before, where it's like, well, this is what we do, and this is what we're going to do. And there's just like no flexibility with this. And you got to have flexibility, and you have to adjust to the game and play how the game is coming to you. This is what makes elite coaches like Andy Reid second to none, because they let the game come to them, and they have their game plan, and obviously they're amazing at scheming ahead of time, but then depending how the game goes, they'll change it. If the Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs were really aggressive, known for going on 4th downs and all of this, if Andy Reid was in this exact situations with Patrick Mahomes, the GOAT, he would say, nah, we're gonna go up 3 scores, because that's the smart thing to do. And you could say, well, hey, he made a good throw, he just dropped it, what can you say about that? But that's the risk. Balls get dropped all the time. That's the risk of going for it on 4th down, is because of course there's drop balls. Of course you get flushed out of the pocket and you make a bad throw, or you get sacked, or whatever it is. And so I don't want to say where it's like, well, if you got it, you would have said, that was a great call. And I wouldn't have. I mean, listen, the Eagles, for the most part, were kind of on the forefront of going for it so much on 4th down, dating back, years ago, back in 2017. And that's when like there was a lot of this discussion about like, going for it versus not going for it, and is it the smart move? And you kept hearing, well, it's like, if it works out, you're a hero, and if it doesn't, then you're a zero, and you can't judge the decision based on whether or not it works out. And I reject that. I really, really do, because there's a smart decision to do, there's an aggressive decision to do, and there's just straight up wrong decisions to do. This wasn't necessarily aggressive, it was just wrong. You can be aggressive and be right, and you can be wrong and be aggressive. Like, we can have these different variations of this, and it just was not smart the way how the game was going. You have a chance, you're winning, to grow your lead. Field goals are not a sign of weakness. Field goals are not a sign of, giving up or being conservative. Sometimes it's just the right decision, and they made the wrong decision.
The Lions aggressive all year. It's one of the reasons why they were in the NFC Championship.
See?
But was he too aggressive this game? Up 24-10 before half. Long field goal? Nah.
There's a difference between being aggressive in the regular season versus in the playoffs.
Neither worked. Here's Campbell afterwards.
The Cowboys versus the 49ers.
It's easy hindsight, and I get it, I get that. But I don't regret those decisions, and that's hard. It's hard because, we didn't come through. It wasn't able to work out, but I don't. And I understand the scrutiny I'll get. That's part of the gig, man.
Pretty good. Did Dan Campbell's aggressiveness lose this game?
No. But he did make one grievous error, and it was not the fourth down calls. So listen, the one fourth down call that I disagreed with the most was when they were up 14. I would have kicked there personally because I think there is a massive psychological impact on San Francisco if you're down 3 scores. High scoring game, I feel like 2 scores, you always feel alive. Low scoring game, I feel like 1 score, you always feel alive. So like in the Chiefs game, I felt like being up 10 was huge. In that game, being up 17 would have felt huge. I know they have a shaky kicker. That one I would have gone for, but that's a judgment call. He can make it. We don't know if he would have made it. The thing that was indefensible, Coach, was running the ball down 10 right here when you have 3 timeouts and burning one. In the modern NFL, I shouldn't say modern, in the new onside kick NFL, if you get in an onside kick game, you lose.
Right.
You are better off being down 7 with all 3 of your timeouts and a minute left than you are what they did. That lost them the game. The game is over. The moment you run that play and then call timeout, the game's over. I don't care what you do.
But I don't know if that was on Campbell.
That is not a judgment call.
Or the
that
OC.
is not, I'm going with my team, what got us here.
So
that, to me, if they had just kicked the field goal on first down, they're fine. You kick off, you get a stop, you have a chance. So that, to me, was the massive mistake. The fourth downs are more controversial, but I at least understand the logic behind it. There was no logic behind running it, burning a timeout, now you're in an onside kick game and game's over.
It's a good take.
Yeah, the onside kicks where it's everybody knows you have to onside kick. The percentage of getting that is so small, and to not have the 3 timeouts, you're just conceding the game at that point.
Conceding the game.
So I agree with you. In terms of the fourth down, I also agree that being up 17 at that point, so it would have been 17 with essentially 22 minutes left in the game. They scored, you scored, and now you've exchanged blows. So it's not a big momentum killer, but then to get stopped on fourth down after they had the field goal, that's where you start, especially for an immature team, that you start feeling like, oh no, here we go. I don't know if we can win this. But in fairness to Dan, it is all in retrospect. And let's bring up Dan's success here. So here's what he's done in plus territory. He's had 20 attempts throughout the course of the regular season and postseason, and he's converted on 17 of them. So he's got an 85% conversion rate, and that's what he was going with, and that's what he said he's going to go with, and he stuck to it, and they've been very successful.
Right, but sticking to it is the problem, because this is what he said, and this is a key moment. This is a key point. I can sleep at night. He's like, I don't regret this. I won't regret those decisions. That's great. And that sounds good. And I get it. But there was times in my own personal life that I knew that I was probably not doing the smart thing. Whether it was, in dating or something to do with like my parents or something or other family members. And it was like, I'm going to say or do something that I know won't get me or put me in the best chance of getting the goal that I want, whatever it may be. But at least I'm staying true to myself, or whatever. And I'll be able to sleep at night knowing that. And you suffer consequences for it, And I used this example before, but I think it's a very fitting example. There's kind of 2 examples, but I think the one that most people who are watching this video will know is like Game of Thrones. Ned Stark, right? The whole part, and for those of you who maybe only watched the show and didn't read the book as well, but the whole part of who he is he's such a man of integrity, right? He is supposed to be just like the man with the most integrity in pretty much all of Westeros, right? In all of the land. And because of that, he died. that is literally what caused him to die, right? He refused to play the game of the Game of Thrones. He wanted to do what was right and what was wrong. And what was right was that Robert Baratheon was like, you're now the going to be pretty much the king for temporarily. And then Cersei was like, nope. And there was even a letter and she just lit it on fire. And he was like, what? Like, he just went there with no one behind him to help him. And just like, he just trusted that Cersei was going to read this. And then you even saw the I forget all their names, but the one guy who was pretty much like, hey, this is the seal of the king. This is real. And she's like, oh, is it? And then she just like lights it on fire. And then since he refused to then just bow down and say, okay, Joffrey is the king, I'll be the hand, or let me just go back to Westeros or back to Winterfell and be like, okay, whatever. Instead, he was like, no, honor, this is wrong. And so he got his head chopped off. I mean, there is a world, and I know this sounds silly to talk about. You're like, what are you talking about here? But this is the problem when you're just so rigid and inflexible, and you're playing in a world that you don't create the rules, right? And that's what happened in this game. That's so much of what it reminded me of like, he's like, well, this is what we do. We do this throughout the whole season. This is amazing. We do 85%. We're going to stay true to our identity. That's fine. No one's telling you to abandon your identity. But sometimes, for those of you who are really loudmouth, and you know what? A lot of you guys are sports fans, so I imagine a lot of you have strong opinions, and a lot of you, take pride in the fact that you don't shut up and you always share your opinion and stuff like that. And that's great. You can stay true to yourself. But sometimes it's smart to not speak up. Sometimes when you're at the dinner table and someone likes this politician and the other person likes that other politician, sometimes it's just better to be like, nah, you know what? I don't need to tell everyone why I think so-and-so is a moron and why I think my guy is the best. It doesn't matter. And you don't have to be that outspoken person in that moment, okay? You don't have to be. You could just let it go. And that's something that comes with age and experience. When I was younger, I was always like, this is my opinion and I'm not going to shut up for anyone. I'm always just going to be who I am. And then as you learn and grow, and especially in dating and relationships, when you first maybe start dating, you could be like, I'm not changing for anyone. And then as you get older, you realize, oh, you know what? I maybe do got to change a little bit, or I got to be nicer, or I do got to do these certain things. And that's what comes maybe with experience with Dan Campbell. And I think that's what he has to do and learn and grow from. But the big question mark is, will he? Because if you change and grow into the future, by definition, you're pretty much admitting that you were wrong in the past then. Because let's say he's in a similar situation in the playoffs next season, and now he doesn't go for it on fourth down, he doesn't do those things. He's then effectively admitting that what he did previously was the wrong decision, that he made a mistake, and that's why he changed. And not a lot of people want to do that. And I'm not saying that he's incapable of doing it. I have no idea. But I'm just saying that's why a lot of people stay stuck in their ways. Because in order for you to change and grow, a lot of times you have to admit what I was doing in the past wasn't working. If you were in a contentious relationship and your partner breaks up with you, and you blame them and say, well, she was just crazy, man. She was crazy. She was awful. And then you get into a new relationship. Like, if you now change how you interacted, you have to then kind of take responsibility and say, you know what, maybe I wasn't the best boyfriend. Maybe I, didn't bring the best out in her, And so you're kind of admitting that you're wrong to a degree. And it's a tough pill to swallow. And it's something that we all have to experience in our lives, no matter what aspects, whether it's dating, work, sports, family stuff, really whatever. And I think that's what Dan Campbell then faces. And, he says he can sleep at night. And again, it's a comforting lie to a degree, because he's still sleepless at night right now. He's still tossing and turning and going, oh my God. You're thinking, oh, why couldn't so-and-so just caught that ball? They just caught it. And then, you can say, should I have done that? And then the whole benefit of staying true to your identity is that in those moments when you're like, should I have done it? You could say, you can kind of shut that down and say, no. I stay true to my identity. I'd rather lose that way than lose conservatively. That is my identity. That is what it is. But the truth is, either way, you lost. And the other truth is that if you didn't go for it on fourth down, your chance at succeeding and winning the game would have been higher. And then who knows what happens. So it's a tough pill to swallow. And the truth is they also talk about this in sports. They rather see you be too aggressive than not aggressive enough, whether it's basketball, baseball, football, oftentimes, but there's a time and a place. And the last point I'll say about this is the perfect example for this is actually in baseball. Ironically, in the outfield, you have balls that are a lot of these times that they're these in-between balls, where you either can dive for it, and if you dive for it and you don't get it, the ball is going to the fence. And now runs are scoring, or, whatever the case may be. Runs are scoring, or at the very least, the runner who now hit the ball is going to really advance and be in scoring position. Or you can pull up and just take it off the one hop or whatever, play it conservatively, and now you keep the runner still, or maybe only one run scores instead of multiple runs. And again, this is game management. This is situational, both baseball, obviously in a specific example, but then also situational in football. These situations matter, and the situation dictates your actions. If it's bases loaded, 2 outs, bottom of the 9th, yeah, you better lay out and dive for that ball because it doesn't matter if it gets behind you. But if it's, no one's on base and it's the second inning, and there's no outs, maybe you don't dive because now you're giving them a rally. You're now starting the game off essentially with a man on second or third and no outs. And it's like, well, that's a crappy situation where if you just pulled up, it would have been a base runner at first base, no outs, and now you can turn the double play. And now it completely changes. So again, you can't just say, even that chart, that graphic that they just showed where, look, he goes for it all the time and in these aspects, it's all situational. Where are you at in the game? Are they behind? Are they ahead only by 3? Are they playing an inferior competitor, an inferior team? Are they in a very fortunate situation? Who has the momentum? What's going on here? It's all situational. And again, that's what makes someone like an Andy Reid and a Patrick Mahomes second to none. And that's what then points out the issues with, say, a Dan Campbell, because that's not situational. He proved that really to everyone when we watched him in the Detroit versus Cowboys game, because it was just like, yes, going for it. If you want to say you want to go for it on that first 2-point conversion, that was great, but it didn't work out. Now you have to just say, okay, that sucks. I'm really angry. Let's just kick a field goal and let's just win this in overtime. And instead it was, no, we're going to do it again. No, we're going to do it again and again and again and again and again. And you fail. And so it's just tough to see. It really is if you're a Detroit Lions fan. But either way, that game was fun and exciting, and I really hope the Super Bowl kind of lives up to that game, because to me, so far, that game was the most exciting game throughout all of the playoffs. But what do you all think? Do you think Dan Campbell's to blame for this? Do you think, nope, that was their identity and they had to stay true to it? Would love to hear your thoughts on this one. Let me know in the comments below. Please don't forget to subscribe. As I said, we are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really helps with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.